Okay, I believe we're live. Hi, everybody. I'm Marjolein. I want to welcome you. Thank you for joining me today. First of all, subscribe. Make sure you subscribe here. Our Lighter Living Library is available on lighterlivinglibrary.com, where you can get 15-day free trial. If you don't want to do that, you can join on YouTube, where you can stream it live on your phone, on your computer, okay, so I'm hearing myself here on my iPad. Okay, let's start over here. Today, we are going to be talking about the pelvic floor, and that is kind of by popular demand. You know, when I get emails from all of you, lately, it has been one of the most important questions that people are asking me. And there's two big questions. How do I strengthen my from leakage or prolapse or any of those things as we age? And men too, not just women. Or how do I relax my pelvic floor? Because some people suffer from a tight pelvic floor, which can cause pain both in your lower back and in your pelvic area. So let's just start by talking first about what is the pelvic floor. So if you can imagine your lower body, you have two sit bones, which I talk about all the time in our classes. They're the bones underneath your buttocks that you can feel, basically. And then you have your pubic bone and your tailbone. So if you can imagine this hammock of muscles that attach from the sit bones bone and to the tailbone in the back, and it's like a hammock. It actually does a lot of things. It's the most overlooked important core stabilizing muscles, and we tend not to focus on that because when we think about core, we tend to think of abdominals, glutes, maybe the transversus abdominis. It's so important to remember that your pelvic floor is important there. In most of my classes, which obviously you can see on my YouTube channel at Lighter Living, I talk about the pelvic floor. I talk about to engage it and when to release it. And how that works is through the breath. So I want you to imagine your diaphragm is here in your torso and your pelvic floor is below it. And they breathe together. So when your diaphragm goes up, your pelvic floor relaxes. And when your diaphragm goes down and expands as you inhale, your pelvic floor reduces. So the breath is the most important thing. And we've talked about breathing before, but I'm going to mention it again because I think, especially for those of you who have tension and need to relax it, it's all in the exhalation and allowing the pelvic floor to relax. So on your reformer, you have resistance. When the resistance is high, pushing away from the bar or pulling on your straps requires brute strength. It requires your big mobilizing muscles to work. So if you want to strengthen your quads or your biceps, your triceps, those big muscles, then we tend to add resistance. But in reformer Pilates, what's more important even is in working those deep stabilizing muscles, your abdominals, the muscles that hold your spine in place, and most importantly, your pelvic floor. So as we pull the platform home, the reformer helps you when there's a lot of resistance, but when it's light, you have to engage your pelvic floor more. So for those of you who want to strengthen your pelvic floor, I'm going to encourage you to go light on resistance, and I'm going to show you some of the exercises that focus on the pelvic floor. But if you want to relax your pelvic floor, then use the breath, use the reformer to help you bring the platform home. So add resistance and exhale on the exertion. So again, with the breathing, when resistance is heavy, you're exhaling as you pull or push. When resistance is light, you're exhaling, pulling the platform back. And if you exhale at the right moment, the pelvic floor will relax with you and do everything it's supposed to do. So I hope that explains what the pelvic floor does and why it's important to have it be strong and relaxed at the same time. And that's true of almost every muscle in our body. You don't want one muscle tight, you want it strong, and you want the opposite muscle to be flexible. So flexibility, strength are the two things that we focus on, and the reformer does it all the time. So now let's focus a little bit on the exercises that we should do to strengthen the pelvic floor. First of all, we start every exercise routine with the warm-up footwork. So if you're trying to strengthen your pelvic floor, then go light on that, just for one routine. To take one day and go light instead of being on two black, which is in the middle. Typically, we would do a red and a black, or two black and a red, depending on how strong you are. You're going to go lighter. Try one black or a black and a yellow. And as you return the platform, you're going to engage your abdominal muscles by pulling your belly button down, and you're going to exhale coming back in. And quickly you begin to see the difference. The other thing is, in order to allow your pelvic floor to do what it's supposed to do, it's important to be in neutral spine. And what that means is your pelvis isn't tipped this way so that your lower back imprints. It's also not tipped forward so that you have a really big curve. You try to simulate a neutral spine, much as if you're standing. So again, as we work out, I always say in my workouts, start out with a neutral spine, try to hold that neutral spine in all of the movements, particularly when your legs are in the air. So when you're doing the warm-up footwork and they're on the bar, find a neutral spine. When your legs are in the straps, it's harder to do because your legs are raised, your abdominals have to work a little bit harder. And what we tend to do when our abs are weak is imprint the spine. As you get stronger, you're going to allow more of extension in that lumbar curve. So there's a little space. So again, aim for a neutral spine. And what that does is it places the pelvis in the right place so that the pelvic floor and the diaphragm can breathe together. All right, the second thing that I think is important is to think about doing the legs in straps. The two exercises that I love to do in most workouts is the frogs and the scissors. So as you scissor out, it relaxes the pelvic floor. As you squeeze together, you're strengthening it. And when you frog, it's all in the inner thighs and pelvic floor. And you don't really have to think about it. Your body's going to do it very naturally. Again, so that's warm up in neutral spine, legs in straps, scissors, and frogs. So there are two. Then we get into the knee stretch series and the elephant. And again, these are exercises where more resistance is harder to push out, much easier to return. So I'm going to perform it for you and show you. So with the knee stretches, normally we would do this on two black cords, which is right in the middle. I'm on a black and a yellow, which is slightly lighter. So as I create the curve in my spine to create the C curve, as I push back, it's easy. Coming back is much, much harder. So I have to squeeze my pelvic floor and pull forward. Pushing out is easier because the resistance is light. Pulling in requires core. So you squeeze. So again, the lighter you perform this exercise, the more the pelvic floor is contracting. Again, if you're the person that needs to relax it, you might not do this too light. The reverse of the flexion in your spine is the extension. So this is stick your bum in the air, look up, same movement. Again, now if I go a little bit lighter, because I actually am quite strong, let's say I go to just one breath, easier going out, much harder coming forward. I really have to engage, exhale on the return, because that's where the exertion is. And the same applies for the elephant. So let's go up into the elephant position. It's the same movement. We're doing the elephant now with a flat back. You're pivoting at the tailbone. The tailbone is lifted to the ceiling. Your arms are straight, your head is relaxed. Pushing back is very easy. Requires control to come forward. Squeeze your pelvic floor and lift your tailbone. And then it relaxes, contracts. So again, if you're trying to strengthen the pelvic floor, go light on the elephant. The next exercise that I think is important to strengthen, I'm going to add a chord because this becomes quite difficult, is the pelvic lift. So you're going to start with your toes on the bar underneath your hips. Roll just your tailbone off the platform. You should have your head flat. So just hold here. Put your hand on your belly. Inhale, exhale. If you can feel your belly going up and down with your breath, then your pelvic floor is going along with the breath and your diaphragm. So it's a great exercise to both relax and strengthen your pelvic floor and teach it how to do what it's supposed to do. Once you get strong and you feel like you've got good core strength, you can begin to extend your legs. This is a hamstring exercise when you're extending. So more resistance is going to support the hamstrings coming in. But again, pelvic floor and abdominals are working. So another great exercise. And then let's address the people, men and women, that have a tight pelvic floor that need to relax it. And the way you know that is that you feel pain in your pelvis, it feels tight. I also want to mention that our pelvic floor plays a really big part in our sexual pleasure. So the stronger and the more relaxed the pelvic floor can be, the more you feel better. So it feels better. So again, for men and women, one of the things that I think is a great stretch, and I do it after the 100 in almost every single exercise in every routine I teach, is you externally rotate your knees, bring your knees into your chest and just grab them with your elbows. And here, relax, inhale for 3 counts. Feel the belly expand, the diaphragm lowers, the pelvic floor lowers, then exhale for 4 counts. So exhale slowly through your nose and feel everything relax. Inhale, exhale. And it's just because you're in this external rotation and lying down with your legs out, it absolutely allows your pelvic floor to do what it's supposed to do. The other stretch that's important that we do in all of my workouts is the scissor stretch. So just opening up, and here, take an extra few minutes to inhale and exhale. And that will teach your pelvic floor how to relax and move along with your diaphragm. We can add one more thing that I think is important if you have a tight pelvic floor, is when you do your leg circles, let's do them. You're going to internally rotate. And I do this in a lot of my workouts. So typically Pilates is done with an external rotation for the circles. So traditional Pilates is done with a V position and your legs are turned out. However, I tend to teach it more parallel to allow the pelvis to be in a better position. But if you're tight, internally rotate. So rotate at the hip joint so that you're pigeon-toed, and then make your circles and try to keep that. And that will help with the breathing. So again, you're exhaling on the exertion. So inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Here's frogs. Exhale, inhale, exhale. Scissors, inhale, exhale, So the breath is really, really important. And then, of course, these stretches, this one I love. Just grab your straps, stretch out, feel the attachment all the way into the knee so that those adductors become nice and long. They're getting strong from your scissors, but you want to lengthen them. And again, the pelvis is in the right place for relaxation of those pelvic. Not just women, but we as women, we have babies. And once you have babies, there's a lot of pressure. And then what happens is if your pelvic floor, that hammock isn't strong, we can suffer from incontinence and prolapsing of organs, particularly our bladder, sometimes the uterus. And so what I have found is that my pelvic floor is super strong, and it's become stronger and stronger the more I've done Pilates. And I see that in many, many different facets of my life, but particularly in how I move and how I stabilize. So I want to urge you to take some of these tips, apply them to your workout. And if you have any further questions, you can always email me, Marjolein. We have Lighter Living is on Facebook. There's a wonderful Lighter Living Lifers group, which I love and I talk to regularly, and you can talk to each other. Lots of support. There's lots of articles on my website. I just wrote one on the pelvic floor, which you can refer back to if you like. That's at lighterliving.com, and the magazine has lots of great eat, move, feel ideas and tips, and they're all vetted. You know, these are things that I've done that I apply in my own life, and I like to share those with you. And then, of course, we have Instagram, Lighter Living, and a YouTube channel. So let me know what I can do to help you in the future. It's summertime, so I hope to do another Q&A soon, and I look forward to hearing from you. Now let's answer some of your questions, because I'm sure there are many. First of all, there was some that came in last week and over the course of the last few days. So let me go there first and see if we can answer some of those. And I may have already answered them, which would be great. Okay, so will I just using the Pilates reformer when the pelvic floor is tight? I think I've done that. I think I've spoken a lot about both strengthening and stretching. But if you feel that I haven't answered your question, feel free to email me. I'm happy to address it more personally if you have a more personal question. A few other people complaining about leaking, running to the bathroom, leaking when you laugh. Again, all of these things are really important in terms of stretching and strengthening the pelvic floor. Spasms, I've got one here from a lady who's complaining of spasms, and that is definitely the need to relax the pelvic floor. Focus on your breathing, focus on feeling your belly expanding and lowering when you inhale and exhale. Connect the diaphragm with the pelvic floor, and you'll see some relaxation. We've got some exercises here for osteoarthritic knees and upper and inner thighs, also stiff neck and shoulders. Okay, so this is really fun to talk about, because the reformer Pilates is never about one muscle group nor one part of your body. We look at the entire body in a very functional way. When you do the warm-up footwork, you're retraining your body to stabilize your pelvis, strengthen and relax your pelvic floor, keep your pelvis really still while your lower body moves. So in doing that, you immediately change the way you move in life. And all that warm-up footwork that we do in the beginning strengthens the knees. So depending on how much arthritis you have and how much pain you have in your knee, you're going to adjust the resistance. I always suggest go in the middle. Start with 2 black, which is right in the middle. And then as you want to strengthen your quads and your glutes, add resistance. If you want to strengthen your pelvic floor, reduce resistance and play around with that. I love to do an entire workout on really light chords. And in the YouTube subscription and on the channel, you'll see workouts where we go really light. And it's super, super helpful to learn about your movement patterns, learn about where you're weak, and learn how to move the right way. Okay, Marcy, I am 69, suffer from incontinence. Lots of people do. It's something that I hear about all the time. You've tried a lot of things. I've given you a lot of tips today. Hopefully you'll try some of them. And if you need more from me personally, just email me. It's Marjolein@lighterliving.com. I try to answer every email, so I will continue to do that. All right, is there a video series focusing on the pelvic floor and improving leaky bladder syndrome? I definitely have written articles about it. There are specific routines that are regarding that. So if you feel that that's missing in either on YouTube or at lighterliving.com, let me know and I can do a whole separate video. Bastian, you'll remind me in one of the classes we do in the next few weeks, we'll do a specific routine just for pelvic floor. Okay, I want to welcome, first of all, because we've got people in South Africa now, Australia, Italy, England, and obviously the US. And I just am so grateful to all of you and grateful to Bastian for translating and keeping up on all our European followers. I love you all. I'm so glad you're doing Pilates because it will change your life. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. And if you have any confusion, just make sure that you reach out to me and I will be happy to address the subject personally. I know it's a very personal thing, and I'm sure it's an embarrassing thing if your pelvic floor is weak. There's definitely surgeries you can do, which I have a couple of friends that have done them, and I think therefore definitely Pilates is going to 3 times a week. You're going to see much improvement. So I think that I've talked a lot, and hopefully that was helpful. And I'll see you next time. Much love.